You are standing in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. Maybe you just scrolled past another headline about war in the Middle East, or an earthquake somewhere you had never heard of before, or a political situation that feels genuinely unprecedented. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet question surfaces. Not a panicked one, just an honest one. Did Jesus say anything about this? Not what a televangelist said, he said. Not what a prophecy chart claims. What did Jesus actually say? That question is worth sitting with, because it turns out Jesus did speak directly about the end of the age, at length, in careful detail, and what he emphasized is almost never what makes the headlines in Christian media. This video is going to walk through 7 things Jesus actually said, drawn from Matthew 24 and 25, Mark 13, and Luke 21. No hype. No timelines, no secret decoder rings, just the words themselves and what they genuinely mean for how you live right now. Before we go there, though, let us stay in that ordinary afternoon for one more moment. Because the feeling you get when the world seems unstable is not weakness. It is human. The disciples felt exactly that way. In fact, the whole reason Jesus gave this teaching is because his own disciples walked up to him pointing at the temple in Jerusalem, one of the most impressive structures in the ancient world, and said essentially, "Look at this place. Is it not incredible?" And Jesus responded by telling them that every single stone would be thrown down, not one would remain on another. That statement terrified them. So they found a quiet hillside, the Mount of Olives, and they asked him directly, "When will these things happen? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" That is the context for everything we are about to look at. Jesus was not speaking into a calm theological seminar. He was speaking to frightened people who loved him and did not understand what was coming. And the first thing worth noticing is what he chose to say first. Number 1, Jesus said, "Do not be deceived." That is where he starts. Not with a timeline, not with a list of dramatic signs. He begins in Matthew 24 verse 4 with a warning about being led astray. Many people will come using his name, claiming to be him or to speak for him, and they will mislead many. The first thing Jesus emphasizes when talking about the end is that deception will be one of its defining features. Think about that for a moment. If you are watching a channel or a teacher who is promising to unlock prophetic secrets and tell you exactly what is happening right now, you are sitting in exactly the territory Jesus warned about first. Clarity about that is not cynicism. It is faithfulness. Number 2, Jesus said, "Do not be alarmed by wars and disasters." He lists earthquakes, famines, wars, and rumors of wars in Matthew 24 and Mark 13. And then he says, "These are the beginning of birth pains, not the end." The word he uses is important. These things must happen, but the end is not yet. He is explicitly telling his disciples, and by extension you, that instability in the world is not proof that the end is immediate. It is the condition of a broken age. For 2,000 years, Christians in various generations have looked at their particular era of chaos and concluded that surely the end must be now. Jesus anticipated this. He told you in advance not to read every catastrophe as a final signal. That is not dismissing the suffering of people in disaster zones. That is protecting you from a kind of spiritual panic that makes you useless to everyone around you. Number 3, Jesus said you will be handed over and hated. This is the one nobody puts on a motivational poster. In Luke 21 verses 12 through 17, Jesus tells his followers that before all the larger signs unfold, they will face personal persecution. They will be brought before authorities. They will be betrayed by family members. They will be hated because of his name. And here is the astonishing thing he says inside that warning. He says it will be an opportunity to bear witness. The Greek word for witness is the same root as the word martyr. Jesus is reframing suffering as purpose. He is not promising his followers that following him protects them from difficulty. He is promising them that even in the difficulty, their faithfulness will mean something. That is a different kind of comfort than most people are looking for. but it is the kind that actually holds. If this kind of careful Bible reading is helpful to you, consider subscribing to this channel. Revelation without panic exists to walk through Scripture slowly, honestly, and without manufacturing fear. There is a button below. No pressure, but it helps us keep doing this. Number 4. Jesus said the one who endures to the end will be saved. Matthew 24 verse 13 is one of those verses that gets quoted in pieces. People sometimes pull out the saved part and build entire theological frameworks around it without reading what immediately precedes it. The full sentence is about endurance. It is directed to people who are going through something hard, not people sitting comfortably waiting for a rapture to extract them from difficulty. The word translated endure carries the idea of remaining under pressure, staying in place when everything in you wants to flee. Jesus is describing a quality of life, not a single moment of decision. And he connects that quality directly to salvation, not because endurance earns salvation, but because endurance is what genuine faith looks like under pressure. Now, here is a common misunderstanding worth addressing directly, because it matters. Many people approach Matthew 24 assuming that the primary application is about reading world news. They treat it like a checklist. Wars, check. Earthquakes, check. False prophets, check. Must be almost time. But if you read carefully, Jesus spends far more words on how his followers should live than on what the specific signs will look like. The ratio is telling. He devotes a few verses to signs and multiple chapters to faithfulness, watchfulness, and readiness. The disciples asked for a sign, and Jesus answered with a way of life. That reframe changes everything about how you approach this passage. Number 5. Jesus said this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world. Matthew 24 verse 14 adds something stunning between the signs and the end. Before the end comes, the good news will reach every nation. Jesus does not describe his followers as passive waiters watching for signals. He describes a global mission still unfolding. The end does not arrive despite the church. In some real sense, it arrives through the completion of the church's witness. That is not a statement about you personally unlocking prophecy. It is a statement about what the people of God are supposed to be doing while the world feels unstable. The answer is not bunkers and news feeds. It is witness. Number 6. Jesus said watch. This single word appears more times in these chapters than almost any other command. In Matthew 24 verse 42, he says watch because you do not know the day or the hour. He says it again in Mark 13 verse 33. He returns to it in the parables of Matthew 25. The 10 young women waiting with lamps. The servants given resources while their master travels. The sheep and the goats separated at the final judgment. All of these stories are teaching the same underlying reality. The return of the Lord is certain but not predictable. And because it is not predictable, you are supposed to live as though it could happen at any moment, which practically means staying faithful in the ordinary, unglamorous daily things. Here is the deeper biblical pattern beneath that teaching. Throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, the concept of waiting for God is never passive. Abraham waited for a promised son and kept walking in faithfulness. The psalmists cry out to God while still praising him in the same breath. Isaiah tells a weary people that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. Waiting in the Bible is an active posture. It is attentive, purposeful, and directed. When Jesus says watch, he is not asking you to stare at the sky or monitor news cycles. He is asking you to remain oriented toward him in the middle of everything else life requires. Number 7. Jesus said, whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. Matthew 25 verses 31 through 46 closes this entire teaching with a scene of final judgment. And what is the basis of the separation? Not theological accuracy, not prophecy knowledge, not even church attendance. The standard Jesus uses in this parable is how people treated those who were hungry, thirsty, homeless, sick, and imprisoned. This is not a prosperity gospel. It is the opposite. It is a gospel of presence with the suffering, and it comes directly from the mouth of Jesus as the capstone of his end times teaching. The end of the age, in his framing, is inseparable from the question of whether you showed up for the most vulnerable people around you. Let us take a breath and apply this practically, because that is where all of this is supposed to land. If you want a set of honest tests drawn from what Jesus actually said, here they are. First, are you paying more attention to signs than to faithfulness? If news headlines are shaping your spiritual anxiety more than Scripture is shaping your peace, something is out of balance. Second, when life gets hard, is your instinct to endure or to escape? Jesus called his people to remain under pressure. That is worth examining honestly. Third, are you bearing witness? Not necessarily preaching on street corners, but in your ordinary relationships. Is your life pointing towards something true? Fourth, are you watching? Not the news in a panicked way, but watching your own heart. Watching the condition of your love for God and other people. Watching for opportunities to serve. None of these are shame questions. They are orientation questions. Jesus was not standing on the Mount of Olives trying to frighten his disciples into paralysis. He was preparing them to live well in a world that would not always feel safe. The same preparation is available to you now. The world is genuinely uncertain. There are real reasons to feel the weight of that. But if you came here hoping to find that Jesus confirmed your anxiety about the signs of the times, what you found instead is that he addressed your anxiety head-on and gave you something more useful than a timeline. He gave you a way of living, watchful without panic, enduring without bitterness, witnessing without arrogance, faithful without certainty about every detail. That is the Jesus of the Gospels, not the one on the prophecy chart. The one on the hillside, speaking carefully to frightened people who loved him, telling them that the end does not catch his people off guard because his people are already living the way the end requires. Before you close this video, here is a question you can answer in the comments below. Of the 7 things Jesus said, which one surprised you most or challenged you most personally, and why? There is no right answer, just an honest one.